I see myself playing anything. I love to be on the field. So anything to help the team win, I'm always willing to do.
That's what you like to hear. Derrick Moore, Michigan defensive end, sophomore defensive end, on the In the Trenches pod recently. So do anything that it takes to win. Get out there on the field. Music to Michigan fans' ears. Welcome in, Cinco de Mayo. Good afternoon, Michigan football. We're ready to take off. Talk some Wolverines with you. We're live here weekdays, 5 days a week, talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And today we will talk a little bit about Derrick Moore and some of the things. We'll let you hear some of the things that Derrick had to say about last year, his off season, and how things are going, and looking forward to next year. He covers it all, and we'll listen to some of that audio. Meanwhile, a former Michigan defensive end is on the move, and he has found a spot. We'll tell you about that. I'm going to start out talking about a little bit of Michigan football recruiting. I've come to find out that people really like. I knew it, but people really like football recruiting, and we're going to get to that. First, yesterday I told you I was going out looking for some morel mushrooms, and I struck out. Didn't see a one. Went out up and down the Peach Mountain looking around for some morel mushrooms and didn't find any. But I got photos for you of the goats who came along with me looking for some mushrooms with me. There's the Good Afternoon Michigan football favorite, Penny, on the left, if you're looking at the screen, and there's her sister, Lola Ray, where they were out. They enjoyed it. They enjoyed foraging around, checking out for different things. I got some other photos of the goats here. Penny, it was, I don't know, I could probably look back and see. I had to cancel a show, I don't know, a month or two ago, probably maybe 3 months ago. Penny was ill. And come to find out, very ill. She was in a dire situation. The vet wasn't sure she was going to make it, but she did. And then, after that, look, I got a picture of her. She's so happy that she was able to survive. She's got a big grin. And, here's a picture of her sister, the very athletic Lola Ray. I don't know. I don't know much about goats. I only know about these two right here. Miniature Nigerian goats, but that one on the right is very athletic. I was at the feed store yesterday picking up some hay, and the guy's like, "Oh, you got some goats?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got 2 of them. They're pets." He's like, "I got 60 goats." Wow, 60 goats. And I know how that's guys. I thought 2 was a lot. No, 60 is a lot of goats, Jason. That's when you're a real. I'm no goat farmer. I just got 2 pet goats that follow me around a little bit, but she's happy. She's feeling good, and so am I. So yesterday we talked about a decision that's happening coming up this weekend, Sunday, and it's Shannon Goodwin, 6'1", 178-pound wide receiver out of Providence Day in Charlotte, North Carolina. Michigan is in a good position to land Goodwin, and why not? His dad went to Michigan. His current quarterback is going to Michigan. And so, this seems like he's going to Michigan. Let's be honest here. Goodwin, everything looks like he's going to Michigan. And that would be great. Yesterday, we are a show that welcomes in your feedback. You got a question, you have a comment, you have an opinion in real time. We'll put it up on the screen and we'll talk about it. There was somebody yesterday, an opinion came in on Cole Sullivan out of the blue. It was from Antoine, actually, now that I think about it. And Antoine said, this Cole Sullivan out of Pennsylvania, I mentioned that he was a 3-star, and Antoine said he thinks he's better than that. He thinks he should be a 4-star. And Sullivan appears to be down to Michigan and Notre Dame making a big time decision. So I thought that we would watch a little bit of the tape on the potential. See if we see what Antoine is talking about. See if we want to boost him up a little bit and say, hey, he's a 3-star, but he should probably be a 4-star. You see all the different positions that they have him listed at: running back, wide receiver, linebacker. What's that say? Defensive back and long snapper. I think if he comes to Michigan, I think linebacker would be the spot, with the potential even to put his hand down on the ground. But without further ado, let's see what we think of the tape from Cole Sullivan out of Pennsylvania. I watched a little bit of this tape, and here he is as a running back. And what stands out to me, the kid is 6'3", and he's playing running back for his team, and looks like middle linebacker. A good athlete, but he's not going to play running back at Michigan. You know, you see him get the ball, and you're thinking, okay, you could see how guys with, I don't know, 4.4, 4.5 speed, you see the difference. So, but you could also see if the kid was like, I don't know, playing tight end or fullback or H-back for Michigan, that could be something, but, not tailback likely. He's taking the run here and blasting off the side, looking pretty good. He's a big kid and athletic at that size. He playing tailback for his team. I'll watch a little bit more of this. Here he is right in the middle of the defense, ready to go side to side. Was going to the sideline, cuts back in, and then, knocks down the defender. Here he is again at running back. He was going to go right up the middle, but then bounced it outside. He's breaking tackles. So you like what you see there. He looks like if he was going to play offense. Is that him chasing down the quarterback here? Yeah. He looks like he would be a nice, it even could be an edge. Linebacker, edge player at Michigan, or a tight end or fullback. It kind of fits that. And remember, the Michigan prototype now, we're talking about tight ends, 6'3", 250 pounds. And, that could be him. We'll watch a couple other plays here. If anybody has any questions or any points there, you can just see a big kid that, here he is catching the ball. Let's see what, I'll talk about him being a tight end. Catching a little bit, one over the middle, and then little yards after the catch. What I'm finding out is watching the highlights of these kids in high school. I think just like when you're watching a college or pro game, I think you got to absorb an entire game to get a feel. See what's happening out there when you don't have the ball, or if you are getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage or something, how you bounce back, and all of those different things that are going on. But that's certainly a name to remember. Sullivan, 6'3". Rivals has him listed right now at 200 pounds. There was a picture on the Maize and Blue Review on the Den that Trevor McHugh had put up of Cole Sullivan next to his dad. As you're thinking, okay, 6'3", 200, he's going to have to put on, a little weight. And, hey, you put on a little weight when you're going from high school to college. McHugh put up a picture of Sullivan next to his dad, and I've got that picture up on the screen right now. And what you can see with his dad, you can see his dad looks like he's 6'2", maybe 6'3". He's got a hat on. I can't really tell, but I would say 6'2", 6'3", and he looks like he weighs all of every bit of 200 and I don't know, I'd say 70 pounds. I mean, he's put together. His dad looks like he could be a defensive tackle. So his son, you look at the dad, and you can see the opportunity there to grow into the 6'3" frame if he's anything like his daddy. And hey, if he's anything like his dad, he's going to be a great size for a defensive end or a tight end if he picks Michigan. Or I guess if he picks Notre Dame too, it'd be a good size for them too. So there it is, Sullivan, and could be a decision coming down for him in May. And it looks like it's a battle between the Wolverines and the Fighting Irish. So a good guy to at least keep an eye on. You want to keep an eye on and keep your ear to the ground and know what's going on with Michigan football, recruiting, basketball, portal, the latest news, features. Well, I've got it all for you. One-stop shopping, the Maize and Blue Review. I urge you to join up today. And you like talking about Michigan? You like having a conversation about Michigan? Well, you get a nice posting board community there where it's very respectful and knowledgeable posters all day, all night, talking about the Maize and Blue on the Den. So join up, go to michigan.rivals.com. I can't wait to see one of you guys out there. I can't wait for the day that Andres or Jason go on there and say, hey, I've accepted the challenge. I've committed. I'm with you on michigan.rivals.com. That's going to happen. That's going to be an exciting day for me. All right. Derrick Moore recently, the Michigan defensive end, was on the In the Trenches podcast. And I have some of the audio. You heard him there at the beginning talking about, well,
I see myself playing anything, you know. I love to be on the field. So anything to help the team win, I'm always willing to do.
You know, you like to hear that. You know, he just wants to be out on the field. He wants to help the team win. So I've got 3 responses from Derrick Moore, and here's one that I liked. I picked what I thought were 3 best responses. And he was asked how good he can be this year. And here's what Derrick Moore had to say.
The goals that I have for myself for the coming up season is just, you know, do better than last year. You know, that's my goal. I don't really have any stats or anything. I don't really want to throw no numbers up in the air, but I just want to be better than I was last year. And I feel like I am better mentally, you know, just being around the team and practicing. You know, I just feel more confident in myself. So.
Not putting any numbers on it. Not talking about getting, 10 sacks. Not saying that he wants this many reps or wants to be a starter. He wants to be better than he was last year. It's a good response. And, focusing in on just getting better. You like to hear that from a football player. And sometimes, you can tell like the position that they're in, he's sitting here talking about, he's already feels like he's gained there mentally on where he's at. So that's that was a good response. Here's the next piece of audio from Derrick Moore on the In the Trenches podcast. Number 8, the sophomore edge. He was asked about this upcoming defense. We talk about it. How good can this Michigan defense be? If you recall last year at this time, I was saying, and I think you all agreed, that it was going to have to be the offense that takes a big step because the defense is going to take a step back. You don't lose Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson, Dax Hill. You don't lose that type of top-end talent and produce the same. Who's going to get to the quarterback? How's this Michigan defense going to perform? They're not going to be as good as they were in 21 and 22, and they were better in 22. Moore was asked how good the 23 defense can be.
I feel like it's going to be better than, last year, any other year. I feel like, we just keep rebuilding each year. We got a lot of guys who came back. We got a lot of older guys, who still here as well. And we got a lot of guys who are in my class and also freshmen, who can also step up and play, a big role in our defense. So, I feel like we talented everywhere. A lot of guys left last year, but I really don't feel that we lost anybody, because I feel like wherever we lost somebody, we got somebody behind them that's going to step up. And I have full confidence in them that, they're going to do their job and we're going to be dominant again this year.
I have full confidence in what Derrick Moore is saying. And you can say you didn't have that confidence last year, and you're right. Maybe I should have. I didn't know, going from McDonald to Minter. Michigan had a new defensive coordinator. They did lose Hutchinson and Ajapo to talk about Dax Hill. And, I'm thinking, those are three premium players. You're going to lose players almost every year, probably every year. So I just didn't think, the high-end production would be there, and it was. But when you just start going back at the very position that Derrick Moore is playing, and they lose Moore, or they lose Mike Morris, close to Moore. They lose Mike Morris, who is an edge, and and Mozzie Smith up front. But we look at the players that are behind them now, and we look at what Michigan was able to do in the transfer portal with Josiah Stewart, and we have seen, I should say, a glimpse of Stewart in the Maize and Blue at the spring game, and it doesn't tell everything, but it is encouraging. Josiah Stewart on the edge, rushing the passer, is very encouraging. I mean, watching that, trying, not to go overboard or anything. Josiah Stewart really looks like he's going to be a very good player. Now, Derrick Moore, I didn't watch his high school tape. The first time that I saw some highlights from him is when he was playing in the Army All-Star game, and he was the MVP. And you look at him, he's like, well, who's this NFL guy playing defensive end in a high school all-star game? It's Derrick Moore, who's headed to Michigan. You listen to him afterwards talk. He sounded very mature. He played like he performed like he was the best player on the field. And then when you look at him, this could sometimes happen. You can look at a guy and say, wow, man, this guy really. Derrick Moore from day one has looked the part. And, he continues. He talked on this podcast where last year he got up to 270 and 275. And, he felt very strong, putting on that weight, but maybe not as explosive. And he was talking about he thinks his ideal weight is 265. He was down to 260, and he's 265 right now. So he is at his ideal weight. He has another one, just a few reps that you watched him in the spring. He looks like he's going to be a problem for opposing tackles. He's got the moves. He's got the strength and everything that you're looking for. I feel pretty encouraged. You go back to however far you want to go back. You want to go back to Kwity Paye, and you go to Ajapo, you go to Hutchinson, you go to Moore. There's players now, and Moore said it. They're rebuilding. I feel like that as well. And I feel like and Moore is going to be part, and so is Josiah Stewart at the edge position at Michigan. And what they have going now, I don't know if it's their premier position. I think it is. I said I don't know, but I think it is their premier position where they're reloading and what they've been able to do. And guys like Moore and Josiah Stewart, and we know Braden McGregor and Jalen Harrell. That's four guys there, and I'm going to give it up to Jim Scarcelli, and I'll put Keyshawn Bennett in the mix there too. You might want to throw TJ Guy, go 6 deep at the edge position. But I would just say, without going overboard or underselling it, that the position looks very good to play at the level that it did last year, which is a championship level. And I think they could even play better. So there it is when it comes down to the 23 defense and Derrick Moore talking about it. Now, let's see what else. 8 ball, Big 8, D Moore. A picture of him from the spring game on his Twitter page. He was asked, he talked about what he had learned from Aiden Hutchinson and what he liked about Ajapo, some of the other edges that had played before him in the Maize and Blue, and he talked in glowing terms about Mike Morris. He was also asked about NFL players that he likes to watch?
A lot of guys in the NFL that I watch, I try to watch guys who like similar to me, similar body frame and things like that, and how they play the game. I watch Khalil Mack, he like to go a lot of long on Street of Power. Reggie White, I like to watch his hump, how the way he abused it, during his time. The Bosas, how the way they just get off the ball and swipe a lot. The Watts, I like their style. Yeah, there's plenty of guys that I watch,
The Watts, the Bosas, the Khalil Mack, singular. Those other guys, you'd be watching both Watts, both Bosas, and then Khalil Mack. And hey, how about we give some props? Derrick Moore going back and talking about the Minister of Defense, Reggie White. I've never met a football fan that didn't like Reggie White. Reggie White was one of the greatest players of all time. You start talking about football back in the day, you say, oh, who are the greatest players? You saw Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Deion Sanders. I mean, these are the guys that you talk about on defense. So to hear Derrick Moore talking about Reggie White is pretty cool. I like the new terminology. We've all heard about, a rush edge and being able to get to the quarterback, but they love talking about the bend now. You get to that arc where you're rushing the quarterback, and then you got to start to turn and get to the quarterback. And can you bend? I'm trying to, I don't know why I am doing it for those, the benefit that are for people that are watching. I don't think it's much of a benefit, but you get, you have to really bend. I don't even know if I'm bending the right way to get to the QB. And, listening to Moore talk about that bend and the punch and the different things that he is, that you have to do. You can't just have that one move if you're going to be an edge or a defensive end or a rush edge, whatever. He's all of those. And that's some good stuff there from Derrick Moore. I liked hearing it. Let's take some of the feedback to see where the people are at here on this Cinco de Mayo. Mark, he wants to see a Randy Gradishar, Laurinaitis. Laurinaitis first. James Laurinaitis. Campbell clone. Who's the Campbell? What Campbell we're talking about at Michigan? Rolder is shaping it up into a all Big Ten similar candidate. No, he says is Rolder. Colson doesn't seem to be progressing or hitting his ceiling. TCU. Houseman looks primed. Well, Mark, there's a few things here. Rolder got it on the field last year, and he looked pretty good in limited snaps. But that's as far as that's where I'm at right now. Is he shaping into an all Big Ten candidate? It's too early for me to tell like that. Liked what I saw in limited time. I would say that, he is in the mix in the 2 deep for this upcoming season. I don't agree with the Colson doesn't seem to be progressing. Now, Junior Colson hit the field as a true freshman. And if you compare what Colson did as a freshman to Jimmy Rolder, there really isn't a comparison. Junior Colson was, light years ahead of where Rolder is. And then last year, Colson, again, I think there's a few highlights or lowlights in this case that Michigan fans cherry picked to feel like they didn't like Colson, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was a Pro Football Focus narrative. I'm not sure. Looking at every game and maybe didn't like what Pro Football Focus was saying about him. Although I don't have it here in my back pocket, but I believe that Pro Football Focus was saying a lot of glowing things about Junior Colson heading into this year, about the possibilities of who, like right after the draft, who would be the Michigan players that would be considered a potential first-round draft picks next year, and they tabbed Junior Colson. I don't know. I don't know why. Again, I think I said it. There's a narrative, and I never know. like Mark and others, like a lot of times you guys are bringing things from other sites, and I don't know how other people are running things. I don't know. Sometimes people just say stuff. Some people, some people have some knowledge and are saying things. Some people are just throwing stuff out there, so I don't really know. So, but I think the negative stuff comes from one game against Maryland where Colson didn't have his best game and didn't have a good grade. And then, out of that, like he got in the Michigan fans' doghouse. Junior Colson shouldn't be in any doghouse, Mark. You should be looking at him as one of the stars of the team. Houseman comes in and looks like a brick blank house. So he's got that look. And, people have said nice things about him. And he played well against Michigan. And he had a good freshman year from Nebraska as a true freshman. But, if you had to tell me, am I going with Colson over Houseman right now as a better football player from just what I've seen? I'm picking Junior Colson. So it's fine to be high on Ernest Houseman. And the same thing with the young Mr. Rolder. Looks like he can run and get after it. But the Colson negativity, it doesn't have to stop. I don't. It's not odd. It's fan stuff. Andres doesn't get the skepticism around Junior Colson. He's been a starter since being a true freshman. Maybe it's because people are just used to his name. Yeah, well, Andres, I mean, you're looking from what you see and what you watch, but again, you don't know where Mark is getting that from. Mark coming back and talking a little bit about LT seemed ideal size as an edge. I'm 52 years old, but I don't remember Lawrence Taylor playing for North Carolina. I don't recall that. So I didn't see him in college. What I remember, and back when Lawrence Taylor was playing, I was a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I wasn't really, but I was scared of Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor was so fast and so mean, and nobody could block him. He was such a difference maker. He would blow up plays, and to this day, the film still it doesn't happen with everybody. It happens with LT. You watch LT play, and you look at the highlights, you say, "Wow, LT could play." And if LT was playing now, hell, I'm talking about right now. How old's LT? LT probably take a few snaps in the NFL right now. That guy was just a monster. Yeah. What year is Harrell? Jalen Harrell is a 20, so that makes him a junior with another year to go, right? So pretty good. I think that Harrell, much like some Michigan fans will talk about Junior Colson or talking about him getting passed up and everything else. I don't think Harrell gets as much acclaim as he should. He was playing, behind Ajabo and Hutchinson, but he was the next guy in there, and he flashed when he was in there. I thought when he was in there last year that he was a game wrecker. And I think out of all of those edges, Stewart, McGregor, Guy, Bennett, whoever else that we want to go with, Derrick Moore, that Harrell is the one that is special. 6 tackles, 250 yards rushing against TCU. Doesn't seem like in the middle is elite or anything to me. Yeah, Mark, this is something that Michigan is going to have to, and this is what happens. The last game that you play, that's why it's such a bitter pill to swallow when you lose a ball game. And, you go back and it's your last memory of watching Michigan play, and it stays with you all summer, and it's a real downer. You win that ball game, and a lot of things are different. Springboard in the offseason, you feel so good. Meanwhile, Michigan losing to TCU, if we are the defense, which we that was a top 5 defense all year long. The offense that was a top 5, and you look and say, well, the offense, hell, they scored. What did they score against? They scored 45 points. But the defense, and sure, there were 2 pick sixes against the defense, but TCU ran the ball against Michigan. TCU stopped the run against Michigan. TCU created turnovers. Yeah, like if we just watch the Michigan or the TCU game over and over again, then there's a lot of guys that you need to call onto the carpet, Mark. A lot. Let's pull the entire front 7. Let's put the guy that was drafted in the 2nd round and was the fastest player of the draft in DJ Turner. Let's put him out on the carpet. Let's put them all out there. Let's look at Jesse Minter, Jim Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy. I mean, all of them. Who had a good game against TCU? Nobody. And it does stay with you a little bit. So yeah, there's still the TCU. There's always going to be the TCU Blues. But the TCU Blues, when it comes down to Colson, all right. You got some TCU Blues with Colson. Scott pointing out that Moore, Graham, Grant, Jenkins, Harrell, McGregor should be the strength of this defense up front. That's right. And to go back, Scott, can this defense, which was spectacular all season long, can they take that into the end of the season and do what they did last year and then get to the college football playoff? And can they stand up whoever they're going to face and look eye to eye in the semifinal? Because last year they weren't able to Mark's point. And can they get to the championship game, and can they depend on their defense against one of the great, whatever team, I guess they're going to call them great, because they're going to get in this scenario to the championship game? You know, can Michigan shut down or make enough plays to keep their offense in the game? Can Michigan win a championship with this defense they had? Because what we saw when the lights were the brightest last year against TCU is that everybody wilted, to Mark's point. The TCU Blues. You're playing the Blues, Mark, but you know what? I ask and I receive. And there we go. When does practice start? Well, 40 days from the opener, September the 2nd, so that would be August the 2nd is when we're talking about practice. We are talking about practice. So here we are in May, June, July, August. It's under 3 months they'll be practicing. Here's some more TCU Blues from Mark. What can you say about Mark? Because Mark at times has been categorized as a Buckeye fan. I've got an X out. I can't see the rest of the feedback. Oh, there it is. Sorry. I try to be able to work all of the buttons and the computer while I'm doing this. And sometimes things blow up in front of my face and I'm like, I don't know how to get out of that, but I'm back. Here I am. I apologize for that. No, I hear you, Mark. TCU ran wild all over Michigan. It's a fair point. OT likes Rolder. Is he all Big Ten caliber? Colson makes over 100 tackles, and he's regressing. Here's a little Rolder to Colson. Yeah, well, and if Rolder was so good, he should have been in front of Colson in the semifinal. The good thing about Mark, though, it's not just Mark who's on Junior. There's a lot of people that are on Junior. I see it. They're like, Junior? You know, the last 2 years, Michigan has had a really good defense. You know who's been right in the middle of that defense? Mark? It has been Junior Colson who has been there. Right in the middle. Number 23? What Junior Colson is? Double check that. I say it sometimes, and sometimes I need to check myself. Let's see. I do have a roster in front of me. 25. 23 Stokes. Good. 25 Junior Colson. Michael Barrett is 23. There you go. I like this response from D. He likes them all. Mark, we'll give him another shot at the TCU Blues. Here's what he says about the Horned Frogs. I still don't think saying our middle defense is elite. Wait, I still don't think saying our middle D is elite after TCU. Hoping there was an upgrade from Colson, Barrett, Graham. We lose Mozzie, so the middle of the defense has a lot to prove. I think that noted, Mark. That's not. I don't think you're hating. You're making your points. I think they're. I'm going to go ahead and note it. LT plus Coke equals stud. Yeah, it's D. The one thing about LT, would he have been a great player if he, if he wasn't starting Coke before the game, maybe during the games? I don't know. I don't know if he started right when he was a rookie, but pretty quickly. He was snorting up the line of scrimmage. He wasn't snorting up the line of scrimmage, the sideline. So, yeah, Coke and LT, you can't have one without the other, right? So, it's definitely something that, but if we talked about, it's like, you ever hear about the Villanova basketball team in '85? They were the team that, the first team that ever shocked the world, the lowest seed ever to win the NCAA tournament. And, they're talked about with, Raleigh Massimino, in glowing terms and everything, and all the different players that were out there. And Ed Pinckney, who led the Wildcats in the championship. And then you read, and it's out there that 4/5 of their starting lineup were, doing lines before the game. And what did they do? Did they shoot from the field? What did Villanova in '85 against Georgetown, one of the greatest teams ever, with Patrick Ewing? Villanova came in, was LTing it up during the game, and then at the half they led, and they shot, I'm going to say, 75% from the field, not from the free throw line, from the field. Their field goal percentage, 75%. And 4/5 of the team was LT in it. So, yeah, it helps. But it also helps kill yourself really quick, too. So, don't do it, kids. I believe the entire linebacker room will reach another level, I think is what this is supposed to say. Remember, CP coached up Devin Bush, Chris Partridge. Can Partridge, as the Michigan linebacker coach, elevate from where George Hilo was at? I don't know. I don't know that, but yeah, there's hope that he could be able to do that. I really don't know what kind of coach Partridge is. I know what you're saying. I thought Partridge, he might have been part of being the linebackers coach and helping out there, but, mostly, from what I've seen with his resume, it was more about his recruiting prowess before, but we'll see. Maybe he will bring something to the table, like Roderick is saying. Couple more here. OT saying Mozzie was a first rounder after the TCU performance. Richard says something needs to change when Michigan gets to the playoffs this year. What? I don't know. Well, what we're talking, it's the thing about TCU is that, Michigan should have beat TCU. Michigan, if they would have played TCU 10 times, I think they would have beat them 7 times. So Michigan had one of those days that you don't want to have, where you turn the ball over repeatedly, where you get right down to the goal line and you're not able to punch it in because, instead of running JJ McCarthy or the running it or being right down there, you go for it and run the Philly special. And then the defense gets torn up by the Horned Frogs. Other teams got good players too. TCU. What needs to change? Well, I don't think, Richard, what Michigan needs to do when they get back to the playoffs this year is they need to play the game that got them there. And what Michigan did all year long is they didn't turn the ball over. They were able to, whatever they were doing, especially on their first possession, they were able to get points. They didn't turn it over on downs like they did. They didn't fumble at the 1 yard line. They didn't throw. JJ didn't throw any pick sixes. He only had thrown, 3 interceptions all year long, and none of them were costly. The one against Indiana, the one against Penn State, that did go for a 6, didn't it? Yes, it did. So I'm sorry, there was one of those. The point remains just the 3 turnovers in the regular season, the one against Purdue. But yeah, that's what needs to change. Don't do all the things that you say when you go into a big game that can cost you. What do we always say costs you in big games? Number one is turnovers. That's what cost Michigan. So yeah, don't turn it over. That would be a very good place to start. Now, can we go back from the year before and jam both of those together? I don't know if there's another Georgia team out there right now. I think this Michigan team is better than the 21 team that had to take on Georgia, but I don't think there's another team out there that I see right now that looks to be as good as Georgia was in 21. At least heading in right now, let's see. It can happen. And hopefully you don't have to play those guys until the championship game if it's happening. You know what I mean? Mark, more TCU Blues. They ran over us on D. They did. Roman Wilson had a great game against TCU. There you go, OT. Gary says TCU won, but couldn't win if we played them this year. Well, yeah, they don't have their quarterback. So they'd also, Quentin Johnston is playing for the Chargers. We were talking about practice. Right now, that's really what we have to talk about. Practice, not the games, practice. More TCU talk. Here we go. Mark, Roderick saying something about TCU. They did some uncharacteristic things that they've learned from. Yeah, hopefully. That's it. You're hoping that you can learn from your mistakes. I know you were being sarcastic, OT. Do they lift during the summer? Downtime. I am sure they do. Gary, these guys, they're not only lifting. The stuff that these guys do now, these guys wake up. I'll make it sound like it's completely different than it was, back in the day or even, 5-10 years ago. But the amount of information that you have and really the amount of the nutrition advice. I was listening to that podcast with Derrick Moore. Derrick Moore was talking about, they're planning his meals. They plan the regimen, whatever it is, with the lifting and all the different other stretching and a million other things that these guys can do with everything. And the one thing that Michigan has right there that is as good or better than anybody in the country is their strength and conditioning program. And Herbert will have them. They've got everything. It used to be, I would talk about, they'll put the parachutes on the guys in the back and have them running out there. And I worked with a former Michigan center named Rod Payne in radio way back in the day. And I used to always say, yeah, Rod, what about, swimming in the pool and all these things? And Rod used to always just say, don't fall for any of that. Only thing you need to do, push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups. I'd look over at Rod, and he was, Rod still is, he's down in Miami. I see pictures of him, and he's a monster. He looks great, for his age, but no, it's not just push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups anymore. These guys are doing it all. You saw them last year. They had, I haven't been in the weight room, but they've got a hill, and they've got the gigantic steps, and they've got all these different things that you can do. It's amazing. You're probably being sarcastic with me too, Gary. Yeah. It's not just staying in the weight room. They got everything, man, that these guys are doing. Do it all. Coaches will say that, your team is, there's a lot of sayings about, you win it in the off season. What these guys are doing right now. The focus, I think number one is I don't want to really hear anything about Michigan. It was fine that they were at the, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they went to Gettysburg in New York. I mean, that was all great, team bonding and everything. I'm talking about from now until August the 2nd. I really don't want to hear anything about the players, because normally if you're hearing something, it's about guys getting in trouble. So I would rather not just hear anything, but the work that these guys are putting in as a team, whatever they're doing, in the weight room and everything, it's going to be important. As these guys, it's one of the phases, but it's a very important phase. And certainly they do have the coaches looking out for them, but there's also a lot more free time and everything else. So let's go. Len Bias being brought up, who, after having a great career at Maryland and getting drafted by the Boston Celtics, went out and partied and died. So, yeah, there's your cautionary tale. Richard, good job. I should have brought that one up myself. Here's some more TCU blues. We couldn't stop the run, and we couldn't run. We were forced to pass, and the pass game is not efficient or consistent. JJ needs to work on his accuracy issues. JJ, I think the passing game would have been okay if JJ didn't throw the 2 pick sixes, because actually JJ was thrown around pretty well in that game. And I think he was efficient, and I think he was consistent. But can you be consistent and efficient when you're throwing it to the other team for 2 pick sixes? No. So I am going to come back, and I'm going to agree with you overall, Shady. It is part of the season. Everything was going great for Michigan until the TCU game, until the first series, when they went right down the field. Donovan Edwards was running wild on a big play. They got it right down to like they had almost every first series with McCarthy under center, took it right down the field. And then they called it was foreshadowing, but, should they have gone with something else? Yeah, now they should have. Should JJ have got out of the play? Of course. Philly special, blew up in their face. 2 pick sixes. Getting the ball down to the goal line and then fumbling it at the 1. That's how you lose ball games. You don't need a genius there against TCU. Yeah, but all of those things that happened, giving up the 76-yarder to Quentin Johnson on a 3rd down. Funny thing about that is if any of those plays, any of those 5 don't happen, I still think Michigan's going to win the game. And hell, if they make a stop on defense, one little stop late in that game after they scored where they really needed to get a 3 and out, they weren't able to do it. I think if they could have got a stop there, I still feel like they could have won. And then still, they would have had a shot, a small shot, if the targeting, that was textbook targeting on TCU was called, they still would have had a shot. They still had a shot with all that stuff that happened. It's not encouraging. I don't know if is it encouraging that of all of that stuff and they still had a shot? Probably not. I don't know. I don't feel encouraged. Maybe you can be encouraged. I'm not encouraged. Richard saying that we seemed overconfident going into the game. Yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe Harbaugh. Harbaugh was on a heater. Harbaugh's like, we're going out of Columbus and we're going to put our linebacker and we're going to have him throw a jump pass on a 4th down. Woo! And it worked. Harbaugh must have been sitting there, as smart as he is and everything that he's been through. He might have been thinking, everything's working. Everything's going Michigan's way. Let's put that Philly special in on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't audible out of it. But I think I was. You know what? You were overconfident. I was overconfident because Michigan was supposed to blow out TCU. Michigan was the favorite. People were already. I was doing it myself, thinking about the championship game. So it was hard for those guys. Everybody was telling them how great they were. TCU was kind of lucky to be there. They were. And Max Duggan, they had a nice time. But, you looked at I was saying it the whole month long, too. I'd look at it, I was saying, what are they running? Some 3-2, 3-5 or whatever they were running. Michigan's going to smash them. TCU didn't have a chance to stop Michigan's running game. TCU's defense didn't have a chance to stop Michigan's offense. Michigan would have been able to put up 50 points with their eyes closed against the TCU defense. And the funny thing is, they didn't throw the 2 picks and fumble it. They probably would have put up 50 points. I don't know. Duggan's pretty good. Johnston was pretty good. And so was the backup running back that they had as well. Okay. 2 pick sixes cost Michigan the game, not the defense. Well, yeah, and the fumble. You want to rank them? I'll go with these two. 1, 2. I'll go with the fumble on the 1-yard line as the 3rd biggest reason. The 4th biggest reason, I will go with the 76-yard play that the defense gave up, DJ Turner, that Johnson had on that 3rd and 7. I'll go with that one 4th. And the 5th one, I will go with not being able to convert the Philly special on the opening series. That's how I would rank them. So the offense is 4 out of 5 of those. So, yeah, the offense over the defense if we are picking a side. And, OT, you're asking me to pick a side. And that's okay. I wanted to look at some of these other edge players, and let's go ahead and do that right here. Along with Derrick Moore, you got it will probably be for the opener, McGregor and Harrell. And then you will see the 2 single-digit guys coming in. Moore, 8, and Josiah Stewart, 5. Feel very good about the edge position. And what we saw in the spring, we definitely saw it in the spring game. And Minter mentioned it on the podcast about Keyshawn Bennett. Bennett looks like he's going to get some snaps, and we don't know about. Guy didn't play. So when you don't, we might be missing. You might should feel a little bit better about TJ Guy. McLaren, Atta, kid from France. I think we look at the kid from France as maybe being a year away, but would it be a shock if N.O. Atta was able to get in there and get into the mix? Yeah, let's just stay with. But probably something would have to happen for him to get in there. They've got a good 4, and then 5, 6 with Bennett and Guy. That's a pretty stacked position. Talking about the Michigan edges. What else do we got? Oh yeah, speaking of an edge, this is an update from a guy that I liked and was a big part of Michigan's defense the last 2 years. Hell, he had a pick against Ohio State. Last year, he is Taylor Upshaw, who hit the transfer portal and went with Coach Prime and said he was going to Colorado. And then it didn't work out with Coach Prime, and now he's going to Arizona. And I believe Jed Fish, former Michigan OC, is the head coach there. I think so. So there's the update on Taylor Upshaw. All right, we'll take some of the feedback here in the time remaining. Let's see where people are at. Every bowl game, we show up unprepared. Well, Jim Harbaugh's bowl record speaks for itself. However, I would say, like, if Michigan did not make the college football playoff in these last 2 years and they had played a regular bowl game, like, they had the previous whatever 5, because they didn't have one during the pandemic, and they lost that game, I'd be a lot more on Harbaugh about the bowl record and about the bowl game. Because he won the first one and then he hasn't won one since. But this is, if you just go with the bowl game, you're missing that they beat Ohio State and won the Big Ten and got into the college football playoff. But the thing about TCU is that one is one that sticks in your craw. And so it does fold into those other ones. So, I'm not over here making any excuses for the bowl record. I think they should have a better bowl record. I think that I think about that bowl game against South Carolina. That one, the fourth quarter against South Carolina, they should not have lost that game. That Florida State game was a winnable game. But it's the TCU game is the one. So, but yeah, I mean, there's the bowl record speaks for itself, but I see a lot of troll non-Michigan fans. Your bowl record, okay, the bowl record, it's fair, but there's also circumstances that go along with the bowl record. But of course, the TCU one, not so much. Mark looking towards hydration. Yeah, I don't. We're reaching a little bit here. I don't know what we're talking about. There was a point that there's somebody that was DMing me after the Fiesta Bowl against TCU constantly about the field. And the field looked like crap. And the field was slippery. And Michigan had not played on that field. And should the coaches and what was going on with the cleats and what was going on with the turf. And, it was a disaster. And, that was one of the reasons. And he could tell on the first play when Donovan Edwards was caught that, that the footing wasn't right. And, I didn't dismiss it, but you've got to deal with everything. TCU was on the same field, so that kind of thing. But then, what was it? Was it the Super Bowl that was played on that exact same field? And then you're looking at it, you're like, the field's a joke. The field was a joke there. You're thinking, well, maybe that guy had a point about the slippery field. Hydration and the field. I'm not making excuses. I'm just talking now, I agree with you, OT. JJ throwing the 2 picks were the problem. I don't know. Even the Ohio State game, it wasn't consistent. I don't know what you're talking about here. What wasn't consistent? The passing game? Michigan played a great game against Ohio State. So I don't know they didn't get off to a very quick start. But Michigan played a great game against Ohio State. If you're looking for the numbers to be great against Ohio State, you say, there should have been a couple more completions. I'll point to you when you get to, championship games, big plays and how you play in the second half, and then the closer you get and then the fourth quarter, that's what's going to decide championship games and big time games. And when it came down to, to those boxes, Michigan checked them all. So, I'm not as concerned about the stats and some of that other stuff. But I don't know specifically what you're talking about. Shadyville, you'd have to call in and do that. Now, Shadyville is talking about the passing. Yeah, like I said, the first quarter didn't go so hot, and yet I'll take 50% passing when you get a 69-yard touchdown, a 75-yard touchdown, and a 50-yard touchdown or 45-yard touchdown, the one that went to Loveland to start out the third quarter. You're getting big plays like that. Big plays are going to beat the other team. I mean, would you felt better if they were, peppering the ball short to get that completion percentage up? Yeah. Knocking JJ's percentage in the Ohio State game doesn't feel right to me. I mean, maybe there's a point that I don't feel like there is one, but maybe there is, but I don't feel like there is. But that doesn't mean I'm not right on everything. You're not the only one that brings it up. D says he has a hard time throwing the floater. If you're talking about like a little screen pass, is that the floater? I mean, what else would you be doing except throwing a floater on a screen pass? So I think that's what you're talking about. Well, maybe D, that's why Michigan didn't really throw screens all year long. And I can remember a conversation that I had with former Michigan quarterback John Wangler, who was the quarterback for the Wolverines back when Anthony Carter was the wide receiver. And I distinctly remember him telling me, one of the toughest passes to throw is that little screen pass out to the running back. And I'd never heard anybody say that before. Well, I don't know how many quarterbacks that I was talking to either, but John Wangler says he might have said that was the toughest pass to throw out of the backfield. And then I can remember watching Matt Stafford with the Lions. He seemed to struggle a little bit with throwing that pass out of the backfield. So maybe that's why they go with more wide receiver screens, because you can get that ball out there a little tougher to, throw the little, like kind of throwing the ball over the first base if you're a pitcher. Maybe there's something there. All right, we'll take a couple more here. I say this because it's true. We can sit here all day and do it. We got DA coming in here. DA says, too much hubris is not healthy. Michigan was out-coached and outplayed. Not sure Michigan was the better team, folks. So we're talking about TCU. That was the only loss of last year. Yeah, I'm not trying to play the hubris against TCU. I do think that Michigan was I think that Michigan, based on what I had seen the 13 games prior, and then what I had seen from TCU and the times that I watched them, when I looked at all the numbers and I looked at all the talent heading into the game, Michigan was a decided favorite. And then the things that Michigan did, sure enough, TCU ran the ball, stopped the run. Their offense was better than I thought it was, and their defense was better than I thought it was. So, I'll give them that. All of that was better, especially the defense was better than I thought it was going to be, especially against the run. I thought Michigan would do a lot better that way. I was surprised that Michigan's offensive line wasn't able to just blow them off the ball. I was surprised that Michigan's defense wasn't able to do better against TCU's. Meanwhile, let's focus in. I don't know if we need to focus in all the turnovers and the big plays, the five big ones. Those are the things that cost them. But, almost any football game that I think I've ever watched or talked about afterwards, if you lose, talking about we're the better team, we have the better coach, or, the other team those things always get said, and it's hard to – it does sound a little silly. If you wanted to say, TCU out-coached Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl, am I going to sit here and say, what are you talking? No, okay. There's the scoreboard. I'm not arguing with that. And so this line right here, Michigan was outcoached and outplayed. That's a fair statement. You're not sure that Michigan was the better team, but me talking about they're the better team, even though they lost, I don't know where that gets me. It probably gets me to what you're talking about, DA. Well, hubris. And that's not good. No, it's not. So I think what you're saying here, this can be tough for people to walk through, but I think you're correct. And yet I don't feel like this last part that you're saying that TCU was the better team. They certainly were on New Year's Eve. And go ahead and take a look at the scoreboard. I can't win this argument, DA. So why would I? Why do I want to argue it? I'm not going to. A few more. Mark says 11-2 seems like the floor this season. The Big Ten or better requires a lot of players to step up over last year. I agree with this, Mark. I'm right with you there. I think 11-2 does seem like the floor. It feels like I feel very confident. Like I was looking at the schedule and saying, those 2 road games at Nebraska and at Minnesota, one of those games is probably going to be a real tough game for Michigan. Is it going to be Nebraska and Matt Rule's first year, in Lincoln? Tough place to play. It was 2 years ago. Maybe. Row the boat, Remember how, I don't want to say scared, but how I thought, boy, 2020, Michigan going there. And that was the pandemic year. Michigan handled them pretty good. Michigan should win both of those games at Nebraska and at Minnesota. One of them probably will be a little bit closer, but yeah. Penn State, Ohio State. Those are the 2. And then the third toughest game is going to be at Maryland. The last 3, I think, will be the 3 toughest. At Penn State, at Maryland, Ohio State. And then one of those 2, Minnesota or Nebraska, I'm going to pick Minnesota. Be a little bit closer. The rest of the games, I feel like Michigan should be blowing those teams out pretty handily. I think it's going to be pretty easy. Let's take a few more. I know I've said that, so let's take just 3 more. Shadyville. It's not the outcome of the bowl game. It's the way the team plays in those games. Fair enough. Wesley. Good to see you, Wesley. TCU didn't play perfect either. Didn't they have 2 interceptions? No, TCU did not play perfect. You are correct about that. Yes, they did have a couple. Let's see. Getting it down here. I want to see if anybody news jumping in. Let's just get it down here. Richard is talking 15-0. Natty time. Mark is talking 11-2 versus 15-0. That's the kind of discussion that's going on. And we'll wrap it up with Andres. Buckeye Mark started it today with the Colson talk. I hope Michigan Mark gets better soon. Hey, it's a little feedback on feedback crime. Never hurt anyone. Little, discussion about Michigan football. That's what we like doing here at 1 o'clock. We will see you this weekend. Mark, I'd like to see you over on the Den at the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. I would like, Mark, as much as you like discussing Michigan and the kind of questions you ask and your ability, that kind of, you'd be perfect. You'd be a perfect member. I'm looking for the perfect members to get in there and, join up with the Maize and Blue Review. Mark, you'd fit right in. Maybe that's the way I should say it. They like talking about it. I said I was done taking feedback, but here's Don, who has getting in under the gun. What do you think about the 24 draft and JJ being a first-round pick at 20 by the Vikings? Well, Don, I think they better move up. I think JJ is going to go a little bit higher than that. If he plays like I think that he can play this year, I think that he'll be a top 10 pick. But I'm pretty high on JJ. And I don't like to go too high on him, but I think that he could be a top 10 pick if he plays like I think that he can. But then I did see recently that Pro Football Focus, right after the draft, they were doing a way too early. Their NFL draft expert, Brugler, I think his name is, he put out a way too early mock draft. I mean, and he's no like sitting around saying, oh, I'm just going to, be a homer for Michigan or a homer for JJ McCarthy. He put McCarthy as a first round pick in the NFL draft. So, but I think that, I think it's possible. There's the part like people say, well, I hope he, would stay around for another year. Yeah. I hope that there's nothing wrong with that. But if he goes out there and gets Michigan back to the college football playoff and he's probably gone, I would think. I hope that Jim Harbaugh stays around. Maybe a package deal. Hey, Don, Harbaugh and McCarthy going somewhere. I don't like thinking about those things right now. It's a little bit far off, but both of them could happen. But both of them could be back for 24 as well. So there's no reason sitting around. Mentioning it, talking about it, but there's no reason to dwell on it. Let's dwell on other things like the TCU game. I don't mind, I do dwell on the TCU game. I can't get away from that. I'll talk about anything when it comes to Michigan, small or big, controversial or fluff. I'll talk about it all. I do tend still to dwell on the TCU game. I am not just, I do go there. I'm right with people that talk about that. I'm not going to sit around dwelling on Junior Colson all offseason. I can tell you about that. But I'm not going to dwell about Jim Harbaugh going to the NFL, but I'll talk about it. It's scary, but funny at the same time. Yeah. You're right. Well, we've got 3-4 months to talk about it all. Hope everybody has a great weekend. And I'm going to say it. I said it once or maybe twice, but I'm going to say it a third time. Why don't you guys come on over and join up with Amazing Blue Review, and we'll do this all weekend, all day, all night. If not, we'll see you Monday. I've already got there might be some more topics, but you think about this right now. The 3 biggest storylines for Michigan in May. That's going to be Monday's show. Until then, have a great weekend. And we'll see you Monday at 1 o'clock.